Welcome back. We're discussing the takeaways from President Draupadi Murmu's address to both houses of Parliament and some of the economic priorities of NDA 3.0. Joining us right now is former Vice Chairman of Niti Aayog, Mr. Rajiv Kumar. Mr. Kumar, thank you very much for joining us. Let me straight away begin by asking you about what we can expect for the farmers, the agriculture sector of the country in the next 100 days and also in the budget. You had the 17th installment of PM Kisan worth 20,000 crore being disbursed. That was the first decision of the government. We have seen decisions on rural housing. What do you think could be some possible reforms that we could expect for farmers? There are demands on legalizing the MSP guarantee, also increasing the allocation per farmer under PM Kisan Samman Nidhi. What are the realistic things that the government could possibly do?
Hi, Parikshit. Glad to be here. And starting off with a very important sector, the agricultural sector. And I think the president's address has clear indications of what the government is about to do. And one which is that they said they will strengthen the network of FPOs, the Farmers Producers Organizations, which I think is a very important step because given the small size of our land holdings, it's only the FPOs which can bring the agriculture to some scale. The second one they said is to increase the storage capacity for the farmers, and therefore a large program is being undertaken in the cooperative sector for the farmers, and I think that will help for farmers in improving their prices, the holding capacity, and therefore the prices that they get, and not do distress sale during this sort of peak production season. And the third, for which I am very enthused, is that the president talks about support to natural farming and says that the organic food demand is very high in the world, and by natural farming support, our farmers can actually really increase their net incomes as we go forward. So these are the structural reforms, and apart from that, there's also the fact of horticulture and fisheries being given special attention. And they talked about the 3.6 lakh kilometers of rural roads being constructed and rural houses, of which the president's speech says large majority are going to be women-owned houses, which again is an important thing that is a sort of important indicator of the way we're going. I consider the Kisan Samman, etc., as more ameliorative steps, really to take care of what the farmers are not being able to achieve, which is the rise in their real net income, and which will happen as a result of this, as the structural reform that they are talking about. And the other one, which is the talk about the MSP, the legal guarantee. We have discussed it before, as it was discussed when I was in Niti Aayog, and it seems that the government is perhaps not yet ready with the real blueprint of how this can be achieved. It can be achieved, but it requires some bold thinking and some cooperation, a very active public-private participation. So I'm not sure that this will happen in the coming budget. But the 3 or 4 steps that I outlined, I think will be very important ones, and can make agriculture get onto a new trajectory as we go forward, and which is very important because agriculture does remain one of our problem areas, and farmers' distress is real, and we need to increase the productivity and net incomes of the farmer, going forward.
You're right, because the president also spoke about using exports route to increase the income of farmers as well. To talk about manufacturing, the other big theme, the president referred to the importance of PLI schemes. She said that we've been seeing an average growth rate of around 8% since 2021. Now, going forward, what do we need to do in terms of increasing our manufacturing GDP, increasing our exports of manufactured goods in the country? The PLIs were one part of the story. Some PLIs have worked, others are yet to take off. They are likely to be tweaked in the budget. Apart from PLI, what do we need to do next in order to make sure we are able to unleash investments in manufacturing?
Parikshit, the first thing one must note is that while aggregate growth has been 8% between 21 to 24, manufacturing sector growth has been much lower than that. And also that the capital formation in the manufacturing sector, as Nagaraj points out in his article yesterday, has been pretty much negative. So there has not been private investment and capacity expansion in the manufacturing sector, despite the schemes like Make in India or the PLIs, etc., that have been launched. So what we need to do, and I heard something which is very encouraging, which is that if DPIIT is actually going to make EODB index, ease of doing business index for the states, I think that could be the key. But what I've noticed when Niti Aayog, and then since outside it, and we are doing a big project for this in the Pehle India Foundation, which is that the ease of doing business for the small and medium enterprises has not really improved, in the past few years, and therefore they face still the brunt of the regulatory and license compliances, of which the Prime Minister talked about, saying that there are at least something like 60,000 such compliances, and all of these mean a problem for the SME sector. Now, the very large corporates, can deal with them, and this is why they are making the profits. But I have been a believer, and I have said this often enough, that there has been a K-shaped recovery in the manufacturing sector, and we now need to focus our attention on how to make the medium enterprises part of the regional and global value chains, because that will also increase their exportability. And it is the export sector which has to be promoted, because that also is a far more employment intensive growth than what you have otherwise. And it is the medium enterprises and the small ones which tend to get those employment intensive production going, and to connect them with the global production chain. So I think I must summarize by saying that it is really the ease of doing business in the tier 1, 2, 3 cities, which is critical if we want our manufacturing sector to take off and really drive the growth going forward.
Right. On the issue of jobs, this was a major problem and campaign issue made by the opposition during the elections. Now, the government has time and again said that it's not the government's job to get in and create jobs, create thousands, lakhs, crores of new jobs every few years. The private sector has to step in. Now, the PLIs do have a condition of job creation. But do you think maybe an employment-linked incentive scheme, something can be done on the face of that? Because many in the government believe there are complications to that. When it comes to creating skilled jobs for youth, is there a way out? Is there a blueprint?
One, I'm not very enthused about employment incentives for investment, etc., because I think that's one more, as it were, sort of a temporary incentive which will not change things very much. The president's address has, mention of all of this, which is that they want to emphasize the non-IT service sector, which can be very employment intensive, and as to repeat myself, the export sector is employment intensive, and promotion of these sectors through policies which make capital private investment more viable in these sectors, I think, is the key going forward. Now, for employment, I think one of the things that I've been advocating is a much stronger apprenticeship scheme. Rather than put all our eggs in the skilling basket. Apprenticeship scheme is what has seen Germany and Japan and Korea to get people ready for the kind of jobs that are going to be in demand in the future. The problem with the current schemes is that they lag behind the demand, and therefore, by the time the youth gets out, their demand may not be there. But more, I think very importantly, Parikshit, we've got to get the data on employment right. There is such huge discrepancy. There's such massive differences in what people are saying. Now, the female labor force employment data, the PLFS says it's now 37%. The CMI says it's only 8%. People talk about 20 million jobs per year more needed because of the backlog. The others say that no, the job creation in the past 10 years has kept pace with the entrance in the workforce. I think good policy must start with reliable, perfect and timely data, which people accept. And I think that importance must be now recognized, and a convergence needed, and a convergence, reached among different experts to say as to where we are on the employment front. Is no point denying it. Is neither any point
Okay.
exaggerating the unemployment situation. And I think that's where the start has to be made. And then, as I said, we've outlined some of the steps which will generate more jobs than what we've done in the past
Okay.
few years.
Mr. Kumar, one final question, if I were to would like to put to you, and that is about women. The President's speech also referred to the steps taken for the betterment, for the empowerment of women across the country, and how different government schemes, including PM Awas Yojana, Har Ghar Solar, they are benefiting women. But do you expect, and has there been a consultation within the government previously as well, proposals prepared on a direct benefit transfer like scheme for women of the country? Do you think something like that could be expected in the budget or within the next 5 years?
I'm not so sure of that, Parikshit, because what the president address has is schemes like the drone training for the women, or the Lakpati Lakshmis that they wanted to create, or the expansion of the self-help groups, 1 crore more people being enlisted, and also the housing, rural households, 4 crore of which have been created or put on ground, and then another crore, and a large majority of them being in women's name. So I think, and I think I agree with that. I don't think a handout to the women, as promised by some parties, etc., is going to solve the problem of women employment or women welfare. Because what you need is a motivated labor female force and conditions which will increase the female labor force participation, both in urban and even more so in the rural areas. So that's what you require to do. And I'm sure these palliatives, which I call them as band-aids, is not going to take us very far. And this government, I think, is quite committed to saying that we will do the structural reforms, as they did with the Jan Dhan Yojana, or as they did with the Ujjwal Yojana, or the Har Ghar Nar Mein Jal, which will all benefit women, and therefore, equip them, empower them to become more productive contributors to our economy, rather than just sort of have handouts from the budget. I think this is a much better route to go than the other.
Absolutely. And the government has time and again emphasized that they will move ahead with consensus. And the Prime Minister has also said that they will maintain the path of fiscal prudence and fiscal consolidation. Thank you very much, Mr. Kumar, for joining us on the program. It's a pleasure talking to you. Let's see what the government announces in the next 100 days. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of News Center. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.